Hello, this is Dr. Do again. This video is outside of medicine. Continue the Wing history reading. I'm going to read it. While the Benjamites were saying, "We are defeating them as before," the Israelites were saying, "Let's retreat and draw them away from the city to the roads." All the men of Israel moved from their places and took up positions at Baal Tamar, and the Israelite ambush charged out of its place on the west of Gibeah. And then 10,000 Israel's finest men made a frontal attack to Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that the Benjamites did not realize how near disaster was. The Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and on that day the Israelites struck down 25,100 Benjamites, all armed with swords. Then the Benjamites saw that they were beaten. Now the men of Israel had given way before Benjamin, because they relied on the ambush they had set near Gibeah. The men who had been in ambush made a sudden dash into Gibeah, spread out and put the whole city to sword. The men of Israel had arranged with ambush that they should send up a great cloud of smoke from the city, and then the men of Israel would turn in the battle. The Benjamites had begun to inflict casualty on the men of Israel, about 30, and they said, "We are defeating them as in the first battle." But when the column of smoke began to rise from the city, the Benjamites turned and saw the smoke of the whole city going up into the sky. Then the men of Israel turned on them, and the men of Benjamin were terrified, because they realized that the disaster had come upon them. So they fled before the Israelites in the directions of desert, but they couldn't escape the battle. And the men of Israel who came out of the towns cut them down. There they surrounded the Benjamites, chased them and easily overrun them in the vicinity of Gibeah on that east. 18,000 Benjamites fell, all of them valiant fighters. As they turned and fled toward the desert to the rock of Rimmon, the Israelites cut down 5,000 men along the roads. They kept pressing after the Benjamites as far as Gideon and struck down 2,000 more. On that day, 25,000 Benjamites, swordsmen fell, all of them valiant fighters, but 600 men turned and fled into desert to the rock of Rimmon, where they stayed 4 months. The men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put all the towns to the sword, including the animals and everything else they found. All the towns they came across they set on fire. Wives for the Benjamites, chapter 21. The men of Israel had taken an oath at Mizpah. "Not one of us will give his daughter in marriage to Benjamite." The people went to Bethel, where they sat before God until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly. "O Lord, the God of Israel," they cried, "why has this happened to Israel? Why should one tribe be missed from Israel today?" Early the next day, the people built an altar and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Israelites asked, "Who from all the tribes of Israel have failed to assemble before the Lord?" For they have taken a solemn oath that anyone who failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah should certainly be put to death. Now the Israelites grieved for their brothers, the Benjamites. "Today one tribe is cut off from Israel," they said. "How can we provide wives for those who are left? Since we have taken an oath by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage." Then they asked, "Which one of the tribes of Israel failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah?" They discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had come to the camp for the assembly. For when they counted the people, they found that none of the people of Jabesh Gilead were there. So the assembly turned 12,000 fighting men with instruction to go to Jabesh Gilead and put to the sword those living there, including women and children. This is what you are to do, they said. Kill every male and every woman who is not a virgin. They found among the people living in Jabesh Gilead 400 young women who had never slept with men, and they took them to the camp at Shiloh in Canaan. Then the whole assembly sent an offer of peace to the Benjamites at the rock of Rimmon. So the Benjamites returned at that time and were given the women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared, but there were not enough for all of them. The people grieved for Benjamin because the Lord had made a gap in the tribes of Israel. And the elders of the assembly said, with the women of Benjamin destroyed, how should we provide wives for the men who are left? The Benjamite survivors must have heirs, they said, so that a tribe of Israel will not be wiped out. We cannot give them our daughters as wives, since we Israelites have taken the oath. Cursed be anyone who gives a wife to Benjamites. But look, there is the annual festival of the Lord in Shiloh, to the north of Bethel and east of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem and to the south of Lebonah. So they instructed the Benjamites, saying, Go and hide in the vineyards and watch when the girls of Shiloh come out to join in the dancing. Then rush from the vineyard, and each of you seize a wife from the girls of Shiloh and go to the land of Benjamin. When their fathers or brothers complain to us, we will say to them, Do us a kindness by helping them, because we did not get wives for them during the war. And you are innocent, since you did not give your daughters to them. So that is what the Benjamites did. While the girls were dancing, each man caught one and carried her off to be his wife. Then they returned to their inheritance and rebuilt the towns and settled in them. At that time, the Israelites left that place and went home to their tribes and clans, each of its town inheritance. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as he saw fit. So this is about the book of Judges, just list some important historical leaders, because at that time there's no king. In addition to the religious leaders, like from the Levite family, as Moses instructed, Moses commanded the God will through Moses to the Israelites, priests from the Levite family. And also there's some judges to lead, to fight against the enemies, like Samson, during that Philistine seized the country, seized the Israelites. So Samson is one of the famous leader in the history. And this just briefly repeat another story, what happened inside of the 12 tribes. So I'm just going to stop here and move on to next book, which is Ruth. Start next time. Thank you for watching. I will see you.